Alright, before I get into the video, I just wanted to give you guys a bit of an apology for there being no video yesterday, and I was actually out at the cinemas watching the new Joker movie, trying to figure out, is this movie as bad as what everyone is making it out to be? And you know what, it turns out it definitely wasn't that bad at all, like nowhere near as bad as, like, say, KSI's new song, which, again, I've been seeing some funny ass videos of that, like people just saying when they're driving their car and they crash their car, but KSI's song is playing on the radio, and then they like wake up from their death to turn it off and then go back to being dead. Again, saying it out loud is probably less funnier than seeing it on TikTok at 3 a.m. or while you're watching Instagram Reels. But you know what? I move on. Again, if you haven't already, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest AFL content. But of course, we've got a ton of things to talk about today. First of all, I wanted to go over the recent report that does suggest that Joe Richards has officially requested a trade to Port Adelaide, being reported by Riley Beveridge. Port Adelaide are having a really weird off-season. They, of course, missed out on Harry Perryman and Isaac Cumming. And both of those players were going to be, I think, really solid additions to their team. But unfortunately, one of them in Harry Perryman has picked Collingwood, and Isaac Cumming has picked the Rivals in Adelaide. And I think, unfortunately for Port Adelaide, other than Joe Richards, they haven't had a whole lot of probably what they envisioned of getting. I think they thought they were going to get more than just Jack Lukosius, but again, getting a guy like Joe Richards, who was requested a trade to them, will ultimately be a good addition. I believe he is heading to them on like a 4-year deal, which may sound crazy for a guy who's only played 9 games, but anyone who's got Supercoach can tell you this guy is an absolute freak in the sheets, probably on and off the field. I mean, this guy is, he's played some really good footy. I think he might have played as a sub to start off with, it might not have, but ever since his first game, he has been like really good for Collingwood as a pressure forward, but also something that I liked from him more and more as the season, I think, went on for himself, is he actually moved up the ground quite a bit and played a really good role that I think is starting to become more and more liked in the AFL, as those small forwards or pressure type of forwards that can move up the ground. Again, we know, I think it obviously started off with Richmond and how they had players like Kane Lambert, Daniel Rioli, Jason Castagna were not only able to put pressure on the forward line, but they could move up and do it as well. Hawthorn now with Jack Ginnivan and Dylan Moore. A guy like Joe Richards, I think, will probably try and be a similar type of player like that in the league. And Port Adelaide are going to get a good one. They desperately need to add to their forward line. So this makes sense. I don't know what the trade is going to be. I heard someone say end of second round pick. I don't know what it's going to be, because I know Collingwood aren't going to want to lose Joe Richards at all. And it just seems like that's where it's heading. Again, we got some free agency news. One that is so controversial that I think has really blown up the AFL community, and everyone has a different opinion on this, but it is being reported that two-time Premiership Tiger Jack Graham is, of course, off to West Coast. He is signing with them, and that in return for compensation, Richmond will receive a Band 4, currently pick 42 overall. Again, I haven't been the biggest fan of Jack Graham for a couple of years. That is no secret. I used to love him back on the Tigers in his earlier days, and as of late, with all the injuries, he just hasn't been that good. But at the end of the day, he was still a guy who was supposed to be Richmond's future captain and finished second in their best and fairest only, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and was averaging like 19 disposals a game as a guy who could tag like 2 years ago before the injuries. This man is still easily able to be a very good midfielder in the league, and West Coast know that, and that's why they offered him 4 years. Again, it makes no sense that Richmond received pick 42 here, especially considering Isaac Cumming went to Adelaide, and I know he went on more years, but from the leaks and reports that it's rumoured to be is, I think he might only be on about 50,000 more per season, and the GWS Giants were able to get an end of first round pick compared to the Tigers, who were only able to get an early third round pick. Now, don't get me wrong, in normal circumstances, is Jack Graham worth pick 42 right now? Probably, but with how, like, every other AFL team in the league has gotten really good compensation for players who in a year or two ago probably would have been a little bit less than what Jack Graham was, especially if we're looking at 2022 Jack Graham. Then yeah, it doesn't really make much sense at all. The compensation system is really weird. We know Damien Barrett's been calling it out on SCN. Again, I literally don't know how it all works, and neither do the AFL. They really just pick and choose. If those rumours are true, that Cumming is only making 50,000 more per season than Graham, and it's a whole like 20 to 30 picks different in compensation, I truly give up. I don't really know. I don't want to complain too much about it because it's a lot of unknowns, and I think by the end of this year, we're definitely going to get some clarification or a change, because I think everyone and their dad is confused, and you can tell Richmond aren't happy, but West Coast are definitely happy. They got a player in Jack Graham who, if he can get back from some of the injuries he's had over the last couple of years, he could go back to that 2022 to 2021 form. Again, he's had shoulder issues, hamstring issues, all of the above. I think, yeah, West Coast are banking on it. They're hoping for it. He's going to be coached by his former coach in Andrew McQualter. I think there's a very big chance that goes well. There's also the other one. We know that a trade got done where Jack Darling got sent to the North Melbourne Football Club for pick 67. Again, I still think it's just an okay thing for both teams. I mean, they both get what they want. At the end of the day, West Coast want to go younger and they want to bring in more picks, while North Melbourne are trying to technically do the opposite. They've got this extremely good young core that they've been building over the last 3 to 5 years. They want to now bring in some experience to not only help this team out, but some experience who are going to play, hopefully for them, consistent footy. And even though Jack Darling hasn't been that great for about a year now, he actually said the other day that he's feeling like the best he's ever felt, and he still thinks he's got like a 40-goal season left in him. So, I mean, if you can even get 30 goals out of Jack Darling while being the second option to Larky and adding another forward option who can mark the ball and present well in a pack, I mean, yeah, you're doing really well if you're North Melbourne. So it's a win-win for both teams. There's not much going on there. The one I don't think is a win-win is Alex Neal-Bullen got traded to the Adelaide Crows in exchange for pick 28. Again, one of my best friends is a Melbourne fan, and every Melbourne fan truly knows how underrated of a player Alex Neal-Bullen is to them. He is what Richmond's Kane Lambert was in their premiership years. I think Alex Neal-Bullen is like that for them. Not only has he been a terrific small forward for Melbourne for a very long time, but over the last couple of years, he showed a very good ability to go into the midfield and actually do like really, really well in there. So it's a massive loss for them. Considering this pick 28 that they got back was actually the 28 they traded for Shane McAdam, you're technically looking at a situation where you've traded away Alex Neal-Bullen for Shane McAdam, who hasn't had exactly the best first year for Melbourne. Again, there's still time for him to pick it up. It does suck for the D's. They're losing some important players probably over the next couple years, and Neal-Bullen seems to be the first domino of that. And the reality is, at least as a positive, in pick 28 in this year's draft is probably the equivalent to like pick 18 in most. This is the most stacked draft we've seen in a million years, is what everyone seems to say. So again, pick 28 to the D's. At least they get a pick back in this year's draft. You really can't ask for any more than that. Again, we actually got a bit of a Jake Stringer update, so I wouldn't be surprised if by the time this video comes out, he's actually requested a trade to GWS, because it's being said that GWS is still doing its due diligence on Jake Stringer, who was yet to officially request a trade to them. Again, at the time making this video, he very well could have. But if GWS gives the tick, which sources believe is likely, Stringer will ask for a trade and the Giants/Dons will get to work. It would be a 2-year deal for now. Essendon and Stringer are waiting on the tick from GWS. So he gets his 2 years that he's been demanding. There's a reason he didn't want to go back to Essendon, because he want to get those 2 years. They were only offering him 1. And is this a good move by the Giants? I mean, technically, yes, right? Whatever your thoughts and opinions are on Jake Stringer, I mean, he still had a 40-goal year, right? This year was a 40-goal year for Jake Stringer. And it doesn't seem like that, because when you watch him, sometimes this guy looks like he is the laziest player in the league, which might be true. But at the end of the day, 40 goals is pretty impressive. And the Giants need to add depth now, because we have seen the losses that they've got. Harry Perryman, Isaac Cumming, James Peatling, and Xavier O'Halloran, I think, is getting linked to a bunch of other teams. I forgot his name, but they've got a guy who's literally played 0 games of footy who's requested a trade to Melbourne as well. Amongst another player or two, I think, are looking to leave. They are going to be losing at least 4 to 6 players in this free agency and trade. And even though they are a terrific drafting team who always manages to bring in a ton of talent, I still think they're going to want to stay in that window, and they're going to want to at least develop a couple of those players for another year or two. Even if they have about 4 good picks, which we think they probably will, it's only like a big chance that maybe 1 or 2 of them is going to be really ready for the first year. That's how it usually ends up being for teams like GWS, is like they draft a couple of really good players and only a couple of them are ready to go straight away. So if you're, losing 5 players and you're bringing in 5 draftees, maybe only 2 of them will be ready to go. So you still need to add some depth here and there. And a guy like Jake Stringer, who is still a 40-goal man, can come into your team. He can still pinch hit in the midfield if you need at times, and he should still be another goal-kicking option. Plus, you're still bringing in a guy who you at least know is most likely going to pop up for a goal or 2 a game and isn't going to go completely quiet like a young draftee might. Again, they're still trying to contend. They still want a premiership, and they believe their window is now, and they're going to continue to keep building on the run like they have. So I still think Jake Stringer makes sense, and it also works for Essendon. I mean, they need to make a change or 2, but also play the youth, which I think is going to be a big thing they're going to do next year. So I think a lot of Essendon fans are starting to prepare. They could be taking a step back next year to go 2 steps forward. This is just the reality of situations for Essendon. They need to play, I think, a lot more of the youth next year, and they're going to be having a good draft this year. So moving on from Stringer gives an option and an opportunity for another young kid to come in and play some good footy. So again, still exciting times at Essendon in terms of hopefully getting to see more of the youth next year. But again, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment all of your thoughts and opinions on this down below. Do you guys agree with a lot of these moves that are going to be happening and whatnot? Which ones are your favorites and which ones do you not like? And is Stringer a good option to go to the Giants? I'd very much like to know. Again, as I was saying, if you haven't already, go subscribe to my gaming channel, my IRL/flowing channels, and this one. All of the other ones will be linked down below. But yeah, leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.